G'day legends, I hope that you're having a great day. Now, I've been trying some new things with some subtitles, and hopefully I'll be able to have them translated too, for making for a better viewing experience for you and for more people. So let me know what you think of this. Now, today's video may be a little bit short because it is my partner Lily's 26th birthday. So that is very exciting as well, and calories don't count on birthdays. Now, thanks for your support over the last 24 hours. I really appreciate it. YouTube is a roller coaster, but there's been a lot of map movements over the past couple of days as well. Belarus, and Belarus has been the talk of these choppers crossing. I've had some people message me and say it was definitely on purpose here and there, but there's been a lot of paranoia in Belarus, what's going to happen, and some targeting from the EU as well, sanctioning some individuals. We'll speak about it later, but Belarus has unveiled its newest, most deadly weapon system. So here we go. I don't know what this is on the back of a truck with a guy on one of the horizontal bars. Although I will say, pick on Belarus as you want. Very good like gymnasts and weightlifters, but the smoke grenade trailer thing that you'll see like skydivers have on the foot, that's my favourite bit, as well as some level of karate in here as well. And Eagling, if you're watching this, I know you're like a state champion level BJJ fighter, but that's how you look in my mind. That's inside joke for one of my mates. But on Thursday, the EU did target another 38 individuals from Belarus. They say that these are propagandists from state television, prosecutors, and prison officials. And this is due to Belarus's support for Russia in this war and from launching assaults from Belarusian territory into Ukraine in the beginning too. Now, let's talk about these movements, because the days prior, it's been very stagnant. It seems that we have a lot of movement, then we have nothing, and some back and forward. And this is both ways. Russia will make some, and then Ukraine will take some of that back. Ukraine will make some, and then Russia will take some back. It's been very back and forward, and this is to be expected. But the British MOD have had this statement about some of this too. So on the 3rd of August, the undergrowth regrowing across the battlefields of southern Ukraine is likely one factor contributing to the generally slow progress of combat in the area. Now, you can actually see this from space. If you see a satellite image, you will see like a green band of where the farms haven't been, where there's been nothing mowed, nothing cut down, nothing where the front line is, although the artillery has been smashing it to bits. All the grass is growing, the foliage is growing, all of that. And you can see it from space. The predominantly arable land in the combat zone has now been left fallow for 18 months, with the return of weeds and shrubs accelerating under the warm, damp summer conditions. The extra cover helps camouflage Russian defence positions and makes defensive minefields harder to clear. We'll talk about mines a little bit later. Although undergrowth can also provide cover for small, stealthy infantry assaults, the net effect has been to make it harder for either side to make advances. And a lot of people saying this is just like ultimate cope, blah, blah, blah. You know, I hate the cope word, but this is true for infantry soldiers. The foliage on the ground, that really matters. For anyone who has done like jungle training, I did Tully jungle, and it's crazy. Like, you'd move only a few kilometers through that sort of. Now, I know this is nowhere near as built up as that, but the terrain on the ground really matters for how things work. But it does provide extra camouflage and concealment. But even, a really heavy foliage, that can even have a problem on armoured vehicles, troop movements, how fast you move, where you go, all of that. And it definitely does as well conceal some more of the positions, of the built-up positions. That said, there should be no built-up position that isn't known exactly where it is by now. Like the amount of satellite imagery, the amount of drone imagery, all of this, every single inch of dug-in position would be mapped, I'm sure, and disseminated from there, hopefully, as well. That's how it should be, because none of those are, you can't hide from, at least large scale, from drone, satellite, whatever. It should be known, but it could make it a lot more difficult. Now, some other things I want to talk about. Now, this needs to go into maps. I'm an idiot. Now, there has been footage of a French Caesar weapon here, this artillery system, a 155 mobile howitzer, and these are an unbelievably good system. But this round is a American DPICM cluster munitions, the ones that have caused a lot of stir online. And this is firing it off from here. And you can see how this actually then works. I know that it looks like a very simple system, but these are an incredibly advanced system, especially the rate of fire of these and the maneuverability. Like, the time to set up, fire, and go is unbelievable. And then fires that cluster from there. Now, one thing I do wonder about is I wonder what countries like France or who make the other artillery systems who were against the provision of cluster munitions. I wonder what their thoughts are of Yoju being used in their guns. Now, I'm sure it's been spoken about, and look, I don't know. I don't really, personally, I don't care, but I wonder what that conversation is there. I just had that pop into mind. Now, let's stop stalling. Now, there has been a lot of movements and there has been a massive influx of videos of heavy losses for both sides, as well as taking many prisoners. And this is what we see as soon as we start seeing movements. We see a lot more Russian and Ukrainian prisoners pop up through different chats as areas have moved one way or the other. And of course, sadly, those massive losses that we're seeing more and more. So, let's have a look over some of this. Now, the first thing I want to pop out is from WarMapper here. Now, WarMapper is a very good source for these maps, although I will say is fairly conservative often, but I'd rather be conservative and get it right than some of the other maps who are just like, yeah, fuck it, we're in Warsaw by now. But over the month of July, Ukraine has reduced the area occupied by Russian forces by approximately 85 square kilometers. This means that Russia currently occupies a total of 17.49% of Ukraine, a 0.01 decrease since the end of May. Now, this 0.01, that is of total area of Ukraine, not just 0.01 of that 17%, if that makes sense. But these graphs are very interesting to look at. So we can see that Russian gains and then Ukrainian gains back here in the then yellow. So let's go over some of these areas. And of course, we have the deep state map. We won't be looking at the ISW today because it doesn't show any differences anywhere. Now, of course, we have Ukraine, the capital of Kyiv, in the center. The red areas here occupied since 22, the purple since 14. Here we have Romania. We're going to talk about this in a second. Poland, Belarus, and Russia around here. Now, let's just have a look at some of these areas. Now, these areas where we saw a lot of the attacking down from Kyiv, as well as Uruzani, Stamorsky in here, none of this has actually changed on the ISW or Deep State. What we are going to do as well is then we will compare some maps from Rybar of this particular area. Yep, so Rybar today on the right and Rybar from the 31st of July then on the left. Now, this isn't going to be the greatest matchup ever, but let's have a look. Now, to my eye, I don't think too much is really changing here. Now, this aren't the easiest to actually line up, and this is a zoom in here, and of course we don't have this particular zoom in, but I don't think it's showing much, but it is showing these affostations here that Ukraine is in these tree lines here coming in and coming then into Robotyne. Now, Robotyne is under Russian occupation currently, although we do know that Ukraine is pushing to the southeast of here. Now, a lot of maps are showing that they've pushed a lot further to the south than this map is showing, but that this could become under threat here of Robotyne as well, but we don't really know, as well as it is showing that Russia have had some advancements back into Stamorsky from their Uruzani here. And this is showing, again, different to what the Deep State and the ISW are showing. So this is showing that Uruzani is just in this sort of knob coming out here, where both I don't have the ISW open, but both the Deep State and ISW show it as this sort of flattened off area here. So it is definitely showing that Ukraine have more territory on the Rybar Russian sources than it is showing on this. So I thought that is interesting, but saying that they are counter-assaulting in there, and I've read that on many pages too. Now, a lot of the maps we are going to be looking at are from Syriac maps as well, and I do pronounce that shockingly every time. I do apologise. So we're going to be going through some regions, but let's just go up and down and have a look at where we have actually seen some movements. So the main movement is in here. So the Belahorivka area. So today is, of course, the 4th, his birthday. That's where you guys can all remember it from now on. And we go back to the 3rd, and Russia made a large advance to the west and also in the south here of Belahorivka here too. So Russia did make some territory there. Now, let's have a look, and Syriac maps does confirm very similar to what the ISW is showing. Again, these aren't going to be perfect to line up. Let's see if we can get satellite vision, and of course these are going to be from different times in the day, different seasons, whatever, but this is showing that it's very similar. So we see where this mine is here, I believe, something that the front line is in a very similar spot, and where this dotted line is, that is the step up. To my eye, looks fairly similar. So we're using both Surek maps and then the deep state to get an idea of what is happening in that region. So as well on August the 3rd, but this is the most up-to-date Rybar map of this region. We look in Belarivka as well. Now, this isn't going to be the best to line up, but you can see where it is showing that that Russia did have advances then through this forest area. So we see where this road connects here. I believe this is this like main route through these forest areas here. And we can see 1, 2, these cut-ins. We can see where this road ends here. So it ends here. That's how we get down to this sort of cross intersection. Now, this cross intersection is showing on this map right here, is showing that Russia have made and pushed out an advancement here, as well as some advancement around Belarivka as well. So that is what then the Rybar is showing. So I like to just get an idea over all the maps of what we're looking at, where we're bloody going. Now, some other advancement, and I don't believe that this shows on this map. No, it doesn't. Now, there is some small advancement here near Novoselivsky. That's probably pronounced wrong, that we did see Russia take some small gain there. In Yahidny here, we have another said to be Russian advance. Now, this map is slightly turned, so you're going to have to get a little bit loose with me here. So let's just move this across and have a better look. So, of course, we have Yahidny here, and then we can line up Pischany here as well. So basically just to the north of Pischany. Now this is very, very difficult to line up. So it's the north of Pischany, but to the south of Pershtravenev here as well. So this is this one here that I can't pronounce. So imagine the deep state is turned slightly. I don't know how to do that on here. But that there has been an advancement out from here and a push down to the south and a Russian advance. We don't know how far, but we may see that update on these maps upcoming. Now, one thing we do have as well from the Suryak maps as well is in Mariinka. Now, do we see any change? No, but it is saying to the south then of Mariinka, there has been a more chunk of ground taken in these open fields as well. And they are talking down around here, but we don't have a specific exact spot of that, but we can see this sort of cut down. I believe it's right on this corner, but wherever we've looked before over Google Maps, this is incredibly flat, open terrain. So this is either going to be armoured vehicle movements or taking trench lines from there, but we haven't seen exactly what is going on right in there. Now as well, Suryak maps as well have another Russian advance from Kamyanka here. So a small Russian push out here, but that is not being replicated across the other maps. And when I say it's not replicated across the maps, don't say that didn't happen. We're just waiting for it to be confirmed by multiple then sources. Now, Suryak maps as well do say that Ukraine did take some ground around this Vodani region, and I'm just using Vodani here as a then reference point, but it's more near this Nevelsky region here. Now, does that show an advancement? No, but it may just be catching up from the other day. We did see Ukraine take some territory there. Of course, this is to the south of Avdiivka. We did see Russia take some more ground, so Ukraine did take some in there. Have we seen any advancement in Avdiivka? No, we did see Ukraine take some there back, as we do know that Russia did have a somewhat major advance in around Avdiivka. Wasn't really spoken about much, and Ukraine has taken some back there that right comes up onto this border held since 14. Now, where are we going to next? Going to come into Dubrova, where it is said that Ukraine has taken more territory back in these heavily wooded, treed areas. Now, this isn't the easiest to see in the world, but we have Kuzmini here and Dubrova. So in and around this spot is where we saw Ukraine take some land. So the best way to do it is we can line up where this border is, this dotted line, and it comes up then to the northwest. So dot, 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 and comes up into the northwest just here. So it was saying that right out to here was under Russian control. So where we see it just turned to the due east, it's somewhere just here was under Russian control, and that Ukraine has then taken that area back as well. The major advancement, and I'm guessing this is going to be talked about everywhere, is Vuhledar. Now, this area has been under major fighting for months and months and months. It predates even the Battle of Bakhmut from the bloody start. So let's have a look. As we've seen, this is what it has looked like for a long time, and I skipped over it because as soon as my eye saw it, that hasn't moved. We have these two things out here in these treed up areas, in these tree lines, but nothing has moved. Now we do see Ukraine took a major chunk back here. And with the ground here, with it being a built-up heavy area, now just being bloody blown to pieces, it's just rubble. It's gone to trench low warfare. So Ukraine has taken an amount of areas there, and this is being duplicated across then the Syriac maps here as well. So we have Mikilsky here. Now that's pronounced incorrect, I'm sorry. And we can just see to the north west here that Ukraine has taken a major chunk right in here. We can see this road goes up on the 45 to the northeast. Right under that, Ukraine has taken up a lot, and Syriac maps is showing that they've taken a lot more than this deep state is showing. And it's not showing these push outs in these tree lines here either. The deep state is still showing. So that is very interesting there too. But that will be ending our maps for today, as there has been a lot more movement than we've seen in a long time. And the front line has been fairly stagnant. It's been little bits and pieces to and from, but we will start to see more movement, and then probably as the weather cools off, gets wetter, we will see a reduction in that movement too. As we saw last winter, sort of the ground you've got is the ground you're going to have for a few months, and with the armoured vehicles, things like that, that doesn't change. It's still going to be just like that. You know, last year Russia had the advancement on the armoured vehicles, or the upper hand on the armour, and couldn't make any ground in winter. So it's not going to go the other way. This is something I think we should look at, is, okay, what problems has Russia had, what mistakes, what made big changes? Drones made a big change. Fighter jets, not the massive change. Long-range missiles have had a big influence, but some other stuff hasn't. So that's what we can sort of expect, as Ukraine has well more advanced armour now, but in winter, still not going to be massive over-the-top stuff. Winter, sloppy mud, snow, that's the problem. Those vehicles leave a massive footprint on the ground. Thermal against the snow, they become a massive target again, same as artillery. So we will have to see in the next few months some movements before it goes more stagnant again, and I guess we'll see what the appetite for war continues from that. Now, Ukraine has admitted for the first time that they are responsible for the attack last month on a bridge linking Russia and Crimea, of course being the Kerch Bridge we talked about many times. Now, that last month killed 2 civilians, as well as the previous attack on the Kerch Bridge last year. Now, I know that this is the biggest case of no shit, but now it is confirmed. So Alexei Danilov, who is a Ukrainian politician and the Secretary of the National Security and Defense Council, has said in an interview talking about the strikes previously that they thought were untouchable military targets have now become vulnerable for Russia, that Ukraine can hit them, saying this includes the Crimean Bridge, which was discussed directly by representatives of the security service who participated in both the first and second cases. Danilov has also spoken about the sheer number of mines Ukraine is facing, and we know this has been a huge problem. Now, he says, quote, "The number of mines on the territory that our troops have retaken is utterly mad. On average, there are 3, 4, 5 mines per square metre. Like my friend has said, the mines are everywhere. Both friendly mines killing friendlies, enemy mines killing friendlies. They're just absolutely everywhere. And mines have been the biggest obstacle for this counter-offensive, not just due to their bang, stepping on a mine, driving over a mine, but they also create massive vulnerabilities while clearing the mines. Mine clearing vehicles, they're slower, they have to be funneled into areas, they have to go through specific areas, and that then funnels other systems, tanks, soldiers, into areas that can become susceptible to artillery fire, as well as moving slow for then ATGM and helicopters. So the mines were sort of the precursor to so much of that and some of the failed attacks that we have seen. But it's going to go the other way too. A mine is indiscriminate. It doesn't care if it's a donkey, a child, a Russian soldier, Ukrainian soldier, Willie. It doesn't care. If you tread on it, it's going to blow up. You drive over it, it's going to blow up. So if Russia do want to retake this territory of their same minefields, they're going to have the same fucking problem. And I guarantee the mines being laid by Ukraine and Russia, at least a large percentage, is not going to be mapped of, okay, there's a mine at this grid reference, because some of the guys I know pulling out mines are like, well, some of the mines are ours, some are theirs, we're just putting them because as they're advancing, we laid them. As we're advancing, we're going through theirs laid, ours laid. It's a massive problem. The cleanup for the mines is, I've heard, could take 100 years and billions upon billions of dollars, especially within the cluster munitions. There has been some updates on this grain deal, as we've seen Russian target Ukrainian port facilities at Izmail, which is near the Romanian border, hitting grain silos. So where actually is this? So of course we have Odessa here, this is Moldova, and this is Romania, and this is Izmail here, and the Danube River here runs through from Ukraine up then into Europe, and this is the way a lot of grain is coming out now. As we know, the Black Sea has been stopped export due to Russia pulling out of the grain deal and saying that they will then target ships. Now, Visegrad 24, who is a source of just unbelievable misinformation. The amount of stuff I see is like, that's just false, or an old video saying that this was breaking news from today. It's unbelievable. But they've claimed that Russian drones have flown through Romanian airspace to hit targets in Izmail here, saying to their over 500,000 followers just on Twitter alone, some of the suicide drones Russia used to strike the city of Izmail actually crossed into Romanian airspace. Witnesses say one of the drones crashed in Romania. Romania is a NATO member state. Now, the Romanian Ministry of Defence stated no evidence was found at the scene to support this claim. The Romanian government spokesman said, I don't know what the MAPN is, but that might be an acronym of something, I don't know, but self-reported after seeing the media reports. He sent a search team to the scene, which did not find anything to confirm the information that appeared in the public space. A team of specialists from the Romanian Air Force went to the site during the day to investigate the reported situations. Up to this moment, no concrete elements have been identified to prove the hypothesis circulated. So we have a screenshot here as well. I've got in my notes. So the drones used by Russia in these unlawful and unjustified attacks did not violate Romanian airspace at any moment. The Ministry of National Defence has heightened readiness measures, continuously monitors the situation on land, at sea and in the airspace, in line with national and allied plans. The coordinates with NATO structures to strengthen defence along the entire eastern flank to deter any aggression. But from them, it did not cross into their airspace. And to be honest, even if it did, I think they might even have the same reaction coming back out, because NATO doesn't want to get dragged in over something crossing an airspace. I think there could be some denial there, but that's just my tinfoil hat conspiracy. What actually happened, I heard, is that as it was coming to Romania, Andrew Tate came out of bloody hiding and grabbed the drone and threw it back with his theme song playing in the background. That's what I'm sure that happened. So, the grain deal. This is bigger news than I think a lot of people are talking about, and let's go over this. So the EU today, and this was from The Guardian and some other sources, have urged the G20 to help persuade Putin in reopening Ukraine grain export routine. So the EU's foreign policy chief, who of course is Joseph Borrell, has written to the G20 ministers urging them to help Brussels persuade Vladimir Putin to reopen the main export route for Ukrainian grain to countries of Africa and the Middle East. That Joseph Borrell warned that Russia's decision to walk out of the Black Sea Grain Initiative last month was risking the lives of children and others in war-torn countries and conflict zones. With the international community to speak on the issue with a clear and unified voice, adding, we owe it to the people most in need. Now, we know that this grain deal didn't get renewed, and that was the day after then the Kerch Bridge was struck that we talked about in the earlier of this video, that Ukraine has now taken responsibility for then that strike. Although the grain deal was going to get extended, probably bloody not. So there are some numbers here which people absolutely misinterpret, and it's hard to get an actual figure. So some will say Ukraine supplies 90%, 80% of the wheat to these developing countries, but I believe those numbers are a little bit off, and some will say that it's only 3%. So I'm not going to give you a figure. The figures I've looked at is it sits around 50 to 60% of the grain, and the other one they talk of, I don't have it in front of me here, the maize as well. So where I think this 80% comes from is Ukraine has supplied 80% of the wheat procured by the UN World Food Programme. So the 80%, that doesn't mean 80% of the grain in those developing countries is from Ukraine, but it means from the World Food Programme, 80% comes from Ukraine, if that then makes sense. With the termination of the Black Sea Grain Initiative, the BSGI, we love acronyms, all this is now at risk, adding that World Food Programme will have to source its grain elsewhere with a higher prices and longer lead time. He writes, if the international community speaks with a clear and unified voice, Russia might reconsider and resume its participation in this vital initiative. I would like, therefore, to ask for your support in urging Russia to return to negotiations, as well as to to refrain from targeting Ukraine's agricultural infrastructure. The world has shared interest in responsible stewardship of global food security, and we owe it to the people in need. And of course, they're saying that Russia is blackmailing the UN by this Black Sea, pulling out of the Black Sea deal. Every member of the Council, every member of the UN should tell Moscow enough. This is from Antony Blinken, of course, from the US. Enough using the Black Sea as blackmail. Enough treating the world's most vulnerable people as leverage. Now, the Russian Deputy Permanent Representative, Dmitry Pulaski, repeated Moscow's claims, not supported by the data of international agencies, that only 3% of the Black Sea Grain Initiative exports went to countries in need. And this gets pulled out by a lot. And I'm not going to give exact figures, but I've floated, some float higher, some float lower. I think it's about 40, 50, 60%, somewhere in that range. They're saying if all the problems that have been publicly raised by us are eliminated, now this is from the Russian representative as well, we will be ready to once again take part in the Black Sea Initiative, noting that Russia will give 25 to 50,000 tonnes of grains free of charge to 6 African countries, and that was spoken about at the African Summit in Russia that has been taking place over the last week. British Ambassador to the UN, Barbara Woodward, says the Russian donations would not bring grain prices back down nor help those facing famine in other countries. This inadequate gesture falls far short of solving the global Russia has created. So we know some of the problems with then the grain initiatives were things like Russia had SWIFT payments, then stopped, so the transfer of international money, insurances with some of their ships as well, but there were a lot that Russia could get out. They could still export these agricultural items, but not all that they wanted to as well. And of course, this is where the claim that Russia is weaponizing food and going a step further and saying it's weaponizing food for then the most vulnerable. As we know, with war, famine, anything like that, the people who are already the most vulnerable, they're the ones that really get shat on first, because the West, they will just pay more for it, but it's going to take it away from them. But talking about the blackmail and weaponization of food. But China and Russia, they've also called out the UN, for weaponizing sanctions and for also weaponizing UN meetings being held without Russian press or without issuing visas to some, with threatening to not issue visas to Russian politicians and also to then Russian journalists too. So it is very difficult, of course, this weaponization. Now, we'll go a step further and talk about the African leaders that are calling for the unlocking of Russian grain, saying that they need then the Russian stuff. So African leaders involved in peace talks over Ukraine have called for the unlocking of Russian grain and fertiliser exports to revive a key Black Sea grain deal. That they have called for the UN to take action to release 200,000 tonnes of Russian fertiliser blocked in the European Union seaport, so out of there. The letters called for specific steps to remove obstacles to Russian grain and fertiliser exports, thus allowing the resumption of the full implementation of the Black Sea Package Initiative. And this is from the spokesman of the South African president. So it is something that is going to be a huge problem. But legends, that's it from me today. And my mate just walked in singing happy birthday to my partner. So you may have heard that, but that's it from me today. If you'd like to support me, there's links down below. But otherwise, thank you very much for your support. I'll speak to you soon. Bye-bye.